Hello. I want to thank you for clicking on my channel. I'm PI187, and today I'm going to be reacting to the most impressive church in Paris, not Notre Dame. Somebody uh, mentioned this in my comments, so I should really check this out. So I figured, hey, let's do that. So anyhow, let's do that. Ready? Get my headset on so I can hear. All right.
Gothic architecture, distinguished by its use of pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, flourished in France in the 13th century, in a period of architecture known as High Gothic, where the construction of...
That does look Gothic, but wow! Look at the detail work in this thing. Like, there's a cathedral over in Germany that has some work like this, but
Gothic architecture, distinguished by its use of pointed arches.
Like, it has arches that are a lot like this. This reminds me a lot of it. The work they used to do back in the day is just phenomenal.
Ribbed vaults.
Like, look at that too. Like, oh my god. Gorgeous.
And flying buttresses, flourished in France in the 13th century, in a period of architecture known as High Gothic, where the construction of cathedrals reached an exceptional level of refinement and height.
And detail, like, oh my god, look at this. Look at the amount of work that was put into this. Oh, I could see them using this in the movie for sure.
Around 1230, there was a reaction against the huge scale of High Gothic cathedrals, and architects began to use the same structural approach on smaller scaled buildings, which brought a new sense of intimacy and an increased complexity of detail now intended to be appreciated at close quarters. This new style was later known as Rayonnant Gothic. The word rayonnant is French for radiant, and this name is due to the rays of light that radiate through the windows.
And I know some people might be upset over this, but I'm Canadian, but I can't speak French. And I know a lot of people in some other videos are like, oh, you should be ashamed of yourself, not being able to speak French, being Canadian, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is a lot of Canadians can't speak French. So I'm not like, you know, really, none of my friends that I know, none of my kids, nobody in my family, none of my parents can speak French. Now, I have a friend, his two daughters can speak French, but they went to a school which is it's called French immersion, where that's all, they teach everything in French, and all they do is teach you French. So you become bilingual completely. But like, even my friend that's his daughters, he can't speak French, his wife can't speak French. A lot of us can't speak French. Like, we all had to take it in school, but doesn't mean we were all good at it. You know what I mean? And the only place really they speak a lot of French here is in Montreal or around Montreal. And you know, maybe you think that it's really crazy that, oh, it's just a shame you're Canadian, you can't speak French. There's people in Montreal who can't speak English. So it kind of goes both ways. But no, I suck at it. I did very poorly in French class. Just got by the skin of my teeth. And never was really good at it. I can say very few things in French, so just to get that out there. Some of this stuff, if they start speaking in French, will go right over my head. Look at that building.
The nature of the style made it ideal for palace chapels, of which the most spectacular example is the Sainte-Chapelle in Paris. Built between 1242 and 1248, the Sainte-Chapelle was commissioned by King Louis IX to house the relics of the Passion which he had acquired from the Emperor of Constantinople, among them the crown of thorns and a fragment of the true cross. These relics cost him twice as much as the construction of the building, and he brought them to France in 1238. The Ile de la Cité, the heart of...
Wow, look at that. That looks cool. That's a nice shot from a drone type shot there. Wow.
the city of Paris since antiquity, was dominated by Notre Dame Cathedral on the east, and on the west by the Palais de la Cité, the royal residence of the kings of France in the Middle Ages, making the island the seat of political and religious power. The chapel was built
You guys really didn't mess around when you made your buildings, did you?
attached to the Palais de la Cité as a symbol of the king's piety and authority. So as you approach the building, standing within a small courtyard inside the palace, you'll notice its structure is slightly different than the larger cathedrals. In Gothic cathedrals, you have flying buttresses to hold the structure of the arches. But because this building is so small, flying buttresses would prevent light from passing through the windows. And the main objective of Gothic architecture is to get as much...
Look at those. Those are remarkable. All stained glass. That looks beautiful.
light as possible inside the building. So in order to be able to have such...
And you can't even tell from outside how it looks until you're inside. Wow.
such small buttresses that could support the thrust of the vaults, the architect of the Sainte-Chapelle designed a system of internal iron rods that encircle the building, linking the buttresses horizontally. These rods are concealed in the masonry and pass across the windows, also serving as the framework that supports the glass. Thanks to this ingenious dematerialization of the structure, and to the wondrous properties of medieval stained glass, the interior of the Sainte-Chapelle has no equal, as the chapel is flooded with colorful rays of light that enrich the spiritual and divine experience of entering the chapel. The arrangement of the pinnacles and other elements such as the balustrade, the gargoyles, and the exterior tracery mimic the shape of a reliquary reflecting the building's purpose. But they also mimic the shape of a medieval crown with its...
There was a cartoon when I was a kid called Gargoyles, and it's all about at nighttime the gargoyles on top of the buildings would come alive and save people and whatnot. It was a pretty cool show.
Jewels and...
back in the 80s.
Ornaments. This resemblance to a crown could be interpreted as a symbolic homage to the relic it was built to enshrine.
Definitely like your models over there, don't you? It's like all these buildings have models of them.
Reinforcing its spiritual and sacred significance. Making the total height of the building over 75 meters, the spire is built of cedar wood, and covered with lead for weather resistance.
Whoa.
Statues of saints, gargoyles, and ornate carvings highlight the craftsmanship and the attention to detail. The spire not only accentuates the verticality of the building, making it visible from the distance, but also serves as a symbolic element that stretches towards the heavens.
That is a tall... I know that's just a model there, but wow. That is a tall building.
The Sainte-Chapelle has two levels. In the ground floor there is a room with a low ceiling that was a chapel for the servants of the royal palace, while the spacious upper chapel was used by the royal family and the court.
Whoa.
The ground chapel is accessed from the courtyard, and the upper chapel is accessed from the palace. From the main facade, you can appreciate the double height of the upper chapel. The rose window of the Sainte-Chapelle was built in the 15th century, using a later style of Gothic architecture known as flamboyant, which is French for flaming, and it was called that because you can...
Oh, nice. I was hoping they were going to show us an inside view of that. That looks nice. I think that's really cool how you got, like, when you look at it from the outside, it's almost like it's just black. You can't really see because there's no light obviously going out from inside the building. But you go inside and that's just amazing. Blow
You can
your
see how the
mind.
stone tracery has curves forming flame-like shapes. Other
Oh
elements
yeah,
from the
yeah.
exterior
I
are
see
also
it.
from the
The
15th
flame
century,
shapes.
such as the two small spire on top of the two towers on each side of the main facade, both decorated with fleurs de lis, beneath sculpted crowns of thorns. As you enter the grand chapel, you'll notice the polychromy on the interior. Usually Gothic architecture is not colored, but the walls, columns, and traceries of the Sainte-Chapelle are completely painted with bright colors such as gold, red, and green. And the vaults are painted of royal blue with fleurs de lis.
Wow.
The columns inside alternate between red and blue, and each represent the two royal families from which the king, Louis IX, descended. The blue columns with the fleurs de lis represent the Capetian dynasty through his father, and the red columns with the golden castle represent the kingdom of Castile in Spain through his mother. And at the end of the chapel, in the center you'll see a statue of Louis IX, known also
With no hands. I imagine he had hands originally and something happened to them.
as King Saint Louis.
I'm hoping that's not what his arms look like.
This chapel is very compact as it has columns in the middle of the space, and the ceilings are low, giving a cave-like effect thanks to how close you can see the vaults. As I said, originally you would have entered each chapel through the central portal on each floor, but the way you access the upper chapel now as you visit the Sainte-Chapelle is through the
Oh,
spiral
I was
staircases on
thinking
the
that.
sides after visiting the ground floor chapel. So after being compacted in the lower chapel, and then compacted even more as you climb up the narrow stairs, you finally get to the upper chapel.
Wow.
That gives you an amazing expansion of light and space.
Just blow your mind when you walk in those doorways. Look at that. Oh, I couldn't imagine the years and years and years of work that took. That is a sight.
Because of the structure conformed of thin buttresses, there are almost no walls inside. The whole space is contained by 670 square meters of stained glass.
Oh my.
Most of the glass panels are original, and they depict 1,113 scenes from the Bible.
Whoa.
The three central windows of the apse represent scenes of the life of Jesus, taken from the New Testament. All the windows on the north and south sides, except for the last one in the south corner, represent scenes from the Old Testament, such as the creation or scenes from the life of Moses. The window on the corner depicts the history of the relics that were held in the chapel, presenting King Louis IX as the legitimate successor of the kings of Israel. And finally, the rose window, being oriented towards the west, depicts the book of Revelation, symbolizing the end of times.
Oh, that is crazy.
The most fascinating thing about the scenes depicted in the windows is that, although they are biblical scenes from antiquity, the characters
That is really, really cool that they're all stuff out of the Bible and not just random, pictures of angels or, holy things. Like these all actually are telling a story, which is just That's insane.
Are depicted as medieval people, wearing medieval clothes and armor, and walking in medieval towns surrounded by medieval castles. Kings from antiquity wearing medieval crowns, and ancient priests wearing medieval clothes. These biblical scenes are presented
Oh,
through a
excuse me.
medieval lens, because artists from the Middle Ages could only draw upon their contemporary concept of king, attire, and architecture. The plan of the chapel has 33 meters in.
I don't even have a church in my town that even could even come anywhere a mile close to what how amazing this one is. Like, wow. Like, we do have some big churches and some old churches, but nothing to the extent of this.
Length and 10.5 meters in width, and the vaults reach a height of 20.5 meters.
That's crazy.
A small space for a
Yeah,
Gothic building,
look
yet
at that.
it retains that sense of.
Did they say a small space?
A small space for a Gothic building,
Huh. Okay.
yet it retains that sense of verticality, characteristic of Gothic
Not
architecture.
that small.
The bottom of the walls have a place for the court members to sit, and in the third traverse of the chapel, there's a niche carved in each side of the walls, each decorated with archivolts and sculpture angels and richly painted. These spaces were for the king and queen to sit during ceremonies. At the end of the chapel lies the altar, which once held the 22 relics that King Louis IX had acquired. The Gothic altar is adorned with gilded elements and intricate carvings, and it serves as the focal point of the chapel's interior, drawing the eye upwards towards the stained glass windows and the vaulted ceiling. You can see
The only thing that really kind of suck is the fact that you couldn't see from down below. You wouldn't be able to see these pictures very well to see what they're all 100% representing there because they're so far up there. And it'd be, I guess if you had binoculars or something, you'd be able to see them. But other than that, it'd be very hard to see the top ones. Like, depending on how good your eyes are, I guess. But that's pretty high up there.
that the vaults from the upper chapel are also painted blue, but instead of having painted fleur-de-lis like the lower chapel, they have golden stars. This distinction in decoration visually represents the medieval belief in the divine right of kings, where the monarchy is seen as ruling under divine authority. The fleur-de-lis in the lower chapel symbolize the monarchy's protection over its subjects, while the starry ceiling in the upper chapel symbolizes the heavens, emphasizing the royal family's proximity to God. Just outside the chapel in the top level, you can see the main portal through which the royal family and its court would access the chapel back in the Middle Ages. You can see the figure of Christ in the center of the tympanum. Next to him are two angels with the two main relics that the chapel held, the crown of thorns and the cross, and on the sides are Virgin Mary and John the Baptist. Below, the lintel shows Saint Michel weighing the souls of the dead, those sent to heaven on the left and the damned on the right.
Oh, wow.
To heaven on the left and the damned.
Yeah. Those ones don't look very happy. That guy's holding his head. He don't look happy either. You're the only one like that? What is up with him? The rest of these don't look. Now, is it just this section it's the dam? Because it looks like it to me. The rest look like these are all a lot of them are angels. And then but you got then this guy. Well, obviously doesn't look like he had a good time.
And on the right. On the lower walls, you see panels depicting biblical scenes. On the left, you have the creation, and on the right, Noah's Ark. Most of the portal was destroyed during the French Revolution, and it was remade by a French sculptor in the 19th century. Several parts of the Sainte-Chapelle were damaged during the Revolution, and in the 1840s, scholars, archaeologists, and architects restored the chapel to its medieval state, being as faithful as possible with the original drawings and descriptions that had survived. The most famous of these architects was Eugène Emmanuel Viollet-le-Duc, who, after working on the Sainte-Chapelle, dedicated his life to restore Gothic architecture, most notably the Cathedral of Notre. In the Middle Ages, Jean de Jardin, a French writer, described the experience of entering the Sainte-Chapelle, which gives us a sense of what medieval people thought when entering these impressive Gothic churches. But also that most beautiful of chapels, the Chapel of the King, most fittingly situated underneath the walls of the royal palace, is graced with the most firm and indissoluble structure of the most solid of the stones, the most select colors of paints, the precious gilding of the images, the decorous transparency of the glowing glass all around, the most beautiful ornaments of the altars, the wonderful virtues of the sanctuaries, the design of the reliquaries externally adorned with gleaming gems, and so great exaggeration of beauty is generously given to that house of prayer, that upon entering it, as if carried off to heaven, one would not without reason think has entered one of the most precious chambers of paradise. I hope you learned and enjoyed. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and if you like Paris, there's more coming out of Paris very soon, and there's a playlist on.
I will like that video. That was very awesome. Let's go. Here we are. I'll leave a link down below. So if you want to check out this actual video and maybe go, make a comment or give a like to his video, I'm sure he'd appreciate that. I'll leave a link down below for you. But that is done. Understand Paris. Wow, look at these streets. That is cool. Looks like there's probably a lot of good Paris videos. But anyhow, yeah, that wasn't a very impressive church. Like that stained glass is something else, I'll tell you. Like I couldn't imagine. It had to have taken years and years and years, probably like tens of years to make that castle, or at least make all that stained glass, unless they had like an army of people making it. I think it took a long time, but the detail was phenomenal, and the the look of those windows when you stand inside is obviously something else. Like, wow, love it. Um, yeah, that was gorgeous. But anyhow, I want to thank the person that suggested for me to check this video out. Thank you very much. And if you want to click like, subscribe, or comment on this video, that would be awesome too. And you guys have yourselves a wonderful day, and hope you check out one of my other videos. All right. Bye for now.